Ay, coming in, yeah. Flex, I just wanna win, yeah.
All right, guys. Welcome to Turbo Podcast. I'm here with Nick Wilkie, photographer in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm here with Aaron Maldanado, owner of Brigade and all-around creative. Point of this is we're trying to get behind the creative process, see what people in our community are doing, and help you guys get better what you want to do. There's a lot of shit that goes into this, and I think a lot of people don't understand that or see that. So, Aaron, why don't you start by just introducing yourself, tell us what you do exactly, which is, I know it's a million things, but
Yeah. So my name's Aaron. I grew up basically with Nick down. For me, he's like down there, but wherever he is on your screen. I own a clothing brand named Brigade, based out of New York. Been doing it for a little over 5 years. Also, am like a photographer by night.
He's a real
many hats. He was many hats.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like with Brigade, at least, it's just a constant journey to find ways to express myself while also trying to enhance the lives of others. You know.
Yeah.
Besides that, there's nothing much else. Pretty simple guy.
Yeah, dude, and
pretty humble guy.
Dude, I always see when a new Brigade lookbook pops off that there's always some niche to it. And
yeah, I mean that's because Nick's been killing it, you know.
I've only done a couple, bro. The rest of that is all on you. The direction's all been on you. The clothing is all on you. So you can't take a picture of a turd and make it look nice. But it'll only be a turd. You're out here making some fire pieces, and that really resonates.
I appreciate it.
So that's it. That's on you, guy.
So for me, it was I think of when I was a kid, and every one of my friends was like, dude, I want to start a clothing brand, because there was all these sick streetwear brands. What the fuck? This thing telling me 10 minutes left. I might have to upgrade the premium in the middle of this. But dude, there was a million streetwear brands, and we were always like, dude, I want to be that brand. I want to be the LRG. I want to be the 10 Jeep. And
yeah, you
figured out how to do it. And
sorta. I mean, it's a constant learning process, but I think
have those standards. But for me, it's what made you start it?
So I mean, I guess the long story of it is growing up, I lived where Nick is from as well, in I guess the 845 Poughkeepsie.
540 back
upstairs. But I lived with my dad on weekends, and we would stay out in Washington Heights, Soho, down here. And he owned a clothing brand while I was growing up, and he still does. So I guess at a very young age, I was always exposed to all of it. And he is a person of high taste, So it's he introduced me to a lot of really crazy things at a young age. As cringe as this sounds in 2020, but my first real skateboard, I got at Supreme when I was in 4th grade, I think. I had a Spider-Man skateboard from Walmart, and he was trying to be the cool dad, and he was like, nah, let me show you some real New York shit, So I feel I've always been exposed to, growing up, I was exposed to a lot of things in that nature, and I guess I'm just a product of my environment. It's actually something that I've been really dwelling on lately. I've kind of just been yo, I don't know. I'm just a product of my environment. I'm just doing this because it's what I know, which is kind of weird to think for
It's
it almost feels you have no free will.
Oh, well, there's that, but
well, I think for a lot of people, we subconsciously take on our parents' version of storytelling, and maybe your dad's version of storytelling was just by what he wore and by the clothes that he made.
Oh yeah, for sure. My dad was always super on point with the fits and being on top of whatever's popping in Japan and also in New York. So I mean, he was less of a father figure, more of a friend. So he'd be roasting me for my fits and shit, So it's I always kind of had that growing up. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we do take on our parents' version of storytelling in a sense.
Are you still closer to your dad today?
No. For a while we didn't speak for like 5 years, and then last year, 2 years ago, I used to live with Nick for 2 years. For everybody that doesn't know, it's like my big bro. But
yeah, right. Even playing field, my guy.
But I bumped into him one night. I was fucking super drunk at a Carhartt WIP party, which is like hilarious that he would be there because he's a grown ass man. And yeah, we like kind of rekindled our relationship for a little bit, but like we're on talking terms now. We're not. It's very like blase blah. Like, hey,
Does that give you a bit of a fire in like under your ass and what you're doing, where you kind of just like? I feel like some people are competitive. Would you consider yourself competitive, or?
I don't think I'm like competitive in the sense that I think I'm more competitive with myself than with others. You know, like I'd rather see my friends and stuff like elevate with me. But when it comes to me, I'm like, it has to be better every day or it's not worth it, you know?
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that, bro. Living with this kid for 2 years, I've never seen somebody grow so much before my eyes. Like, you know, you think about when someone like is younger and they're starting to like gain height, right? You don't see it because you see him every day. You don't notice it. But like with him, you notice that shit. Every single day, this man was just on like a completely new state of mind, like really just pushing the envelope. And, you know, it's obviously...
Yeah, that's weird to hear.
No, it is, man. And, it honestly has inspired me. He's talking about I'm the big brother in this shit, bro. Homeboy right here put me onto a lot of things. And, you know, I'm forever grateful for that. Just my 2 cents, but, you know, continue on.
I don't know. I think...
Not to just have this be like an ego
I think that's what
session.
an ideal... Yeah, I think that's what an ideal, like...
That's all you get for today, bro. I'm going to start cutting your ass at the end of this.
I think that's what... I think that's what an ideal relationship should be, you know, like whether it be platonic or romantic. It's like if we're both not elevating, then it's like what's kind of the point?
And we're definitely romantic, right?
I mean, those lips have pause that. I feel like watch my dad watch this. My dad constantly calls me gay, so
your dad might be in the loop for this one. You might get a DM soon, and he'll be like, "Aaron, remember me?" Dude, I don't mean to roast you.
I don't give a fuck.
It's all right, dude. I haven't been my dad ever.
Well, hey, dude. Speaking of like, you know, brotherly figures and people in your life that have driven you. You know, again, you say that you and your father didn't have like the closest relationship. You regarded him more as a friend. Who would you say was kind of like that like male figure in your life, that person who really drove you to be like who you are today? Is it your mother even? Like,
definitely. I would definitely say my stepdad Kevin, but also my mom, like equally, you know. But male figure definitely Kevin. When you asked that question earlier before we were recording about like what's something that stuck with you in your mind or something or whatever.
Yeah, so
I was actually thinking about this yesterday, and it's like what's been on my mind. So that's why I was like, it wouldn't make sense to talk about it, but it found its way into this conversation anyway.
Wait, so repeat the question for us, kind of like to give people a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about here.
Got you. So Aaron, was there a specific moment in your life that has helped define who you are today? And if so, how has this shaped you as an individual? Like, continue on with the thought you were just going with.
Yeah, it hasn't like shaped me as an individual, but it's just something that I kind of processed being like 25 and not being an idiot teenager anymore. I had this recollection of, you know, like where St. Martin's is, the church. This is strictly like, it's in Red Oaks Mill, but it's like like a hill that goes down and then swoops up. Mm-hmm. So it was like springtime or whatever, and we were driving down. We were like, I was coming home from like CCD or something, and he picked me up, and we were going down the hill and hit black ice, and the car started like literally spinning. And all I remember is like he just like grabbed me instantly, and was, you know, whipping the car, and then got it on the right path, and then like, you know, kept driving, got us safe. And I kind of processed, you know, recently like, wow, even at that age, to me, it seems like he saw me as his child, you know, which is like not a lot of people with step parents, I think, can kind of get that. So
Damn.
I don't know. That just like clapped me the other day. I was like, like recalling it.
Dude, that's loyalty, man.
I mean, yeah, to like put your arm out and like, grab a kid and like be trying to fucking get the car back on the right path. I think it just says a lot about someone's character, Like, as a reflex too. It's like he didn't even think about it. So
it was there. Yeah.
I think when you say the whole male figure thing, obviously it goes to Kevin. So shout out to him.
Yeah, I think my stepdad in that situation might just be like, "Brace for impact."
No, it was like the most like man thing I've ever seen in my life. Like I've never seen more testosterone in my life. He's just like, "Fuck this ice." I was like, I want to be a man one day.
Dude, no one exists like me.
Actually, it's true. Nick farts every time he pees in the morning.
Yo.
How does your mom feel about what you do? Does she ever have opinions on it? Does she support you? Like,
yeah, I mean the first like I would say 3 years, which even same for me. Like I was taking it serious, obviously, but I feel like as an artist, you kind of like don't take your shit seriously in the beginning, like you're like, yeah, this would be great if it worked out, but I'm not talented, so I'm not gonna like not commit myself, but I'm not gonna like put all my eggs in one basket and think it's gonna work,
Yeah.
Did you feel like there was a bit of imposter syndrome going on there?
Yeah, exactly. And I think when I was in that moment, or in those moments, whoops. No, but yeah, as I was saying, like, when I was in the beginning and I wasn't like fully in tune and knowing what I was doing in a sense, I don't want to say she didn't support, she supported, but she wasn't like impressed, I guess, but I think after the pop-up we did in 2019, where Nick was part of it.
Wow, that was
I think you came, right, Marty?
Was that
in
the
Chelsea?
Stickies?
Yeah, in Chelsea with the art gallery and like all that.
Yeah, that was big. Met your mom there too.
The year before that, or 2 years before that, I did a pop-up with my homie Angela Estrada from our hometown in Poughkeepsie. And that was my first ever pop-up, and my parents came to that, and they were like blown away by that. So I think after that moment, they were like, "Oh, okay, like this is real. Like, what the fuck?"
Yeah,
you really do this,
dude.
Show and not tell.
I feel like the hardest part about New York is building a community, and it seems like you built a bit of a community yourself. The people that come out to your shows, are you close with them? Are there certain people that you like right off the bat, you know who the hell they are? Or is it strangers that just support the brand?
It's mostly like people that I know straight up. But at every show that we've done, I meet people. The one we did in Chelsea was like fucking insane. Like we got sued for that. That was like insane.
Why'd you get sued? You have to touch on that.
The damn elevator.
We basically like we'd never done. That was like a Brigade pop-up. Like the one with Angela was like Angelo and Brigade, and like it was a collab we did. We did like some hoodies, pants, some ceramics, because he's a ceramist or ceramic artist. And it was also in our hometown, so I knew we'd get like a good like show out. But the one in Chelsea, I was kind of insecure, and I was like, "There's no way in hell like we're gonna get like, over 100 people to come."
Yeah.
And we got a space that the max occupancy was like 175, and it was an art gallery. And my vision was like I wanted it to be this like mature experience. I built with my stepdad Kevin, built the staircase from the Truman Show, which was my favorite movie at the time, and my collection was based around that. So it was like the staircase was there, people could take pictures. There's like the backdrop. Angelo did a whole like sculpture out of garbage cans, and like it was supposed to be this mature experience. And ended up 500 people showed up, and there was a line, and I had free beer because I thought it was gonna be small. So, and people brought like little flasks and stuff. Like everyone was basically fucked up, and it turned into like a rager in an art gallery in Chelsea. Which was, like, insane.
Dude, because like I went, and I remember it was like the coldest day of the winter in New York City,
terrible.
and the line was down the block.
Yeah.
And I was praying to God that Nick could just get me into this. And then I went up and it was Aaron at the front, and he was just like, dude, you're good. And I was like, what the fuck? So, because me and Aaron aren't as close as you two, but...
Yeah, at that point, it was like, that was like my weird flex moment where I was like, anybody that I recognize, like, I'm just going to bring them in. But then it got to a point where I didn't realize there was like hundreds of kids out there.
Yeah.
And I was just like letting people in.
It was gnarly, dude. That was an absolute crazy
people were
event.
like lighting blunts up like in the gallery. They were really upset. I had to go to them.
Yeah, so
they were not happy.
I mean, dude, there's so much to like unpack here too, because it goes along with starting a brand, and I think a lot of people when they start a brand, they don't realize how important the community aspect of the brand is, and that seems to be something that you have an exclusivity and a community. And it's like,
I think
was that a learning process? I'm trying to unpack it. I'm just like, did you start with community, or did you start with clothes and then you're like, shit, like I need people to wear these?
Aaron, I think something that you touched upon before was the difference between owning a brand and making merch.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like there's a very distinct dichotomy between the two. You know, I work for a brand as well. And what would you consider that to be like a serious notion, like something you take serious? Like, yo, I don't make merch. Like, I make an impact. I don't know. I make clothing. I build community. I don't know. Like, what would you kind of like place your brand in the line of? Because I don't think it's merch personally, but
I think it's very interesting, like kind of duality in a sense. I hate that word because it's like we live in a society, but on one hand, it's like a way that I express myself, and it's really fucking cool that it's getting to a point where I can express myself and also learn new things and dive into new topics. And it seems like people relate to it and identify with it, which is like kind of the whole point of being an artist, I think. But it's also when, like what Nick said, Marty, is I have this strong belief that, especially now more than ever, brands are like, they're more easy to come by, I guess, than any time before in the past. Like, we are brands, like me, you, us three are brands. And like Generation Z, for instance, like generation I'm part of, like we perceive ourselves as brands. You know, it's like my personal brand, and my Instagram is like a highlight reel and like who I want to be in a sense, and it's not really who I am. Kind of, you know, it's like this weird facade. But I think there's a weird line between being someone who's like popular on the internet and making clothes, which is, in my opinion, just merch, and then like making a brand, which is creating a lifestyle, creating a subculture, a community, message, a way of thinking, you know. And it's like, I think a real brand at the end of the day should enhance what you do. It should be like, you can find yourself in the brand and then use it as a way to elevate yourself and reach like a higher potential, and not in like a weird consumerist, like, if you buy my stuff, you're going to be better of a person. It's like, come along on this journey with us, and you'll learn more things as we learn more things, and that'll only make you, you know, more adept for the like any situation. I don't know, you know.
No, I think you're nailing it.
I think seeing your progression with the brand, since I've known you since like we were both very young, your approach to you know, creating clothing for people, for others other than yourself, like, you know, it's one thing to design your bedroom to like make something that you want to wear, but also something that other people want to wear, especially like a brand name like Brigade USA. People wear that shit with pride in their chest now because it's something they identify. But you've also gone to great lengths to incorporate more of your thought process and the things you believe, various things. And I mean, you can go into that to whatever in depth you want, like everything from like a book club to like oneism, you know, like you have a lot of these serious undertones to your clothing that I feel is very directed towards a very niche audience, which has created somewhat of this cult following for you. Something that, you know, I don't know a lot of people's brands who do that. Something that's just very like, if you know, type of thing. Was that like your initial like?
But I think that's the
trajectory.
That's the original essence of streetwear. You know, it's like and I hate the word streetwear because it's so diluted nowadays. It's like it's an umbrella term, but let me know if I'm talking too loud because I feel I don't have my headphones on anymore, so I feel like I have to
it's perfect volume for me.
No, my audio is fine.
I think the original, streetwear is punk in essence, and like
counterculture.
Yeah, it's like I totally even forgot where I was going with that because I just
it's genius.
distracted myself with the camera. But what were you saying, Nick? Sorry.
No. Just TLDR. In essence, your trajectory as a brand has been something that has been mainly about keeping in touch and keeping this community alive through introspection, through self.
Oh, I remember what you were saying. You said that if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
I think exactly. Streetwear originally was it's supposed to be like this, anti Big Brother, like it's punk. It's like if you know, you know. Like if I see someone wearing, in this case, Brigade on the street, and say like I don't own the brand, but I fuck with it heavy. It's like a secret handshake in a sense. Like we see each other if we're both wearing it, and it's like, oh, we both are on the same wavelength on some shit. And like, I mean, that's a brand. That's a brand in any way. That's like religion. It's like set of beliefs together, and like we know just because you're branded right now with it.
With that being said, would you be able to kind of just touch upon like some of the basic ideologies of like somebody who would be into Brigade USA or just Brigade? What is something that really connects those secret handshakes? What is really bridging the gap there? Like, what do you guys both know that everyone else in a coffee shop doesn't know when they're both two people wearing Brigade t-shirts that don't know each other?
That's a pretty intense question because it's pretty perspective. But I think.
But hey, it doesn't need to be the most finite answer.
You stole the words out of my mouth, Nick.
I think the core Brigade supporter is someone who, like me, wants to kind of always pierce the veil and pick the curtain up. And I mean, not to get weird, but Mark Fisher, one of my favorite writers, he passed in 2017. He has this great what would you even call it? I guess an observation or analysis of depression. And it's someone who's depressed, he called it a neurophilosophical disposition. And it's opposite of a paranoid person where you think the world's out to get you and you live in a world of illusion. A depressed person is someone who kind of just always wants the realness and the truth and wants to see what's real. And I think that's not to say people that fucking Brigade are depressed, but it's I think
there's more critical thinking.
You want to see what's real. Brigade is pure. It's whatever we say we're doing it, and we're not trying to build this fake facade of the internet culture and all that. But I think someone who always wants to pierce the veil, always pick the curtain up, even if it hurts them to see the truth, and wants to continue to explore new mediums, new anything. I think the Brigade customer or supporter by nature is curious, like I am. So I think
it's questioning, dude. From the moment I met you from Nick, but it was just we were just shooting it up, having beers, hanging out, and I felt that you were such a philosophical person. We're talking about the simulation, all this stuff. We're getting deep here, but my brain was just blowing. But part of that led into Nick telling me about your love for Space Odyssey, and that brings me to the point of what inspires you to create, because like I said, every creation is so either original or an extension of something that was super original. And I think that's the beauty in a true creative, is that you're not going to just copy anything. You're going to make it your own in some sense. So what inspires you?
I agree with you. I don't know. I feel that's a really high praise. I don't know. I think
accept it.
I would like to be at the level you think I am, but
We're knocking down doors today, boys. We're fucking blowing holes through facades, man. Let's keep this shit real as fuck, bro.
Dude, people are gonna catch on, and like people have caught on, and that's why there's a line down the goddamn street to come to a Brigade event. But
that's why certain people fuck with you, Aaron. People that we, may not be able to speak on right now. But there's motherfuckers out there watching everything you do, bro.
Yeah, it's kind of.
You know that. You know that.
I treat it as like, metaphorically, like I'm in a bunker, and I make a grenade from scratch, and then I pop out and I throw it out, and then I like hide, and then I like make a new one. So that's kind of like my personality. But to answer your question, like I guess what inspires me is,
that's sick.
I think it's hard to explain, but I guess like classics, and when I say that, I mean like classics and really good things take a really long time to make and do, and things like that just like really get me going. like
becoming a classic.
I'm sorry.
Becoming a classic gets you going.
Just like classics in general. Like Space Odyssey is like a classic. Like that's like art as film. Like pushed the boundaries and just like will never be forgotten in a sense.
But it took a long time for it to be acknowledged as such, right? Is what you're saying?
Dude, well, first of all, it took Stanley 10 years to make that movie, which, like, to me, that's what's most inspiring about it.
What was it, 1968 it released?
Yeah. It's like a dude at kind of, like, not a peak in his career, but, like, at a moment in his career where, like, a lot of eyes were on him, is like, fuck you, I'm going to, like, do what I want to do for 10 years. A really recent example of that in film is Uncut Gems. The Safdie brothers worked on that film for 10 years. And, like, they wrote the script for Adam Sandler 10 years ago. And they were like, we're not going to make this movie until we can get Adam Sandler. And when they tried to, they couldn't get him because obviously he was, like, a star 10 years ago, like, doing Click and shit, like, top of the Hollywood spectrum.
Yeah.
But what they said was, all right, this is two brothers from New York. They were like, all right, we're going to make movies to the best of our abilities until we basically get to the point where Adam Sandler wants to work with us, you know? And they did it. Like, have you ever seen Good Time? It's on Netflix right now, but it's their movie they did before Uncut Gems. They did that movie, that movie, like, is so good just for what it is. You know, two bros from New York. Like, I don't know. It's a very good New York movie, but it kind of, like, took them to a whole new level. But the crazy thing about that movie is it was just practice run for Uncut Gems. Like, they were like, we did this movie with Robert Pattinson just to learn the pacing and the editing.
Oh,
like,
shit. I saw that movie, and that movie was mind-blowing, dude. With the challenged brother, they robbed a bank.
Yeah, dude. And, like,
spoiler.
They made the movie as, like, practice.
Damn,
because they were like, we need to get to Adam Sandler. Like, we want to make this movie.
That movie was
And
so
stuff like
goddamn
that is
good.
what's inspiring to me. Like, artists that either, do all the things themselves, or, like, people who just, like, stick to something, because I feel more and more in every field and, like, I don't even know anything. Like, I feel like that's just a fleeting trait. It's like we're raised on this, like, instant gratification idea, which it gets the best of me a lot of the times. Like, I'm like, why isn't Brigade, like, way bigger? These kids are blowing up overnight. And it's like,
you gotta look
great things take a long time,
Of course, dude. And I think we can see that you're in this for the long haul, for sure. But is there, like you spoke about these two brothers, and they had this, like, such a specific goal of Adam Sandler. Is there a specific goal that Aaron Maldanado has and Brigade has, or Brigade?
I think it changes constantly, but I really want, I don't know. It's hard because, especially in something where people buy into it, you reach a point of, like, selling out,
Yeah.
And it's
like
very
becoming a mall brand.
Yeah, it's very hard to. I would personally, I don't know shit. I'm 25. I don't know anything. That's like what I'm talking about. But I think from what I've observed is, like, it's almost impossible to ride that line of, like, culturally impactful and commercially viable. You can only pick one of the two. Like, you're either gonna, like, push the envelope culturally and artistically, or you're going to become very commercially viable. And you could do like both. Like you could be culturally impactful for a long time and then obviously make the switch over. I would like to like mesh the two, which I think is a psychotic thing to want.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've always felt like different. I've always felt like I could do something, but I think we all feel that way. So, you know.
Have you heard of
Humble remark.
Yeah. Nick, not to cut you off or anything, but have you heard of United Colors of Benetton?
Yeah, back in the day, like the 90s and stuff.
Yeah, Colors Magazine, but they're like a company that is so commercially viable, but then they always have this underlying message of just purely culturally impactful, where they invite people off the street into this like H&M looking clothing shop, and they take portraits of strangers and then they put them in the windows of the shops.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, this like wanted creativity thing, but I feel like they're always pushing the boundaries, and they're the only people that I see like pulling it off. I don't have any other examples.
In clothing, I think one of my biggest inspirations is Yvon Chouinard, Patagonia. And I thought Patagonia for the longest time was like corporate America, like,
yeah,
you know, not bougie, but like, you know, that stigma that comes attached to it.
The Midtown uniform.
Yeah. As I like learned more about Yvon, like, I think Patagonia is definitely one of those companies that rode the line of like being commercially viable and culturally impactful. It's still a private company. Like him and his wife own it, and it's like because they're private, they can do whatever the fuck they want. Like,
damn,
they don't have to, you know, do appeal to the shareholders or whatever. I think another brand, which I don't know, I guess nowadays a lot of people can disagree, but I think Supreme does it. Like they're untouchable. Like,
of course,
they feel like an underground brand, but they're $1 billion company. Like, that's a lot of people don't understand how hard that is to pull off. And you know, it's like, I don't know, but also they kind of been feeling a little weird lately. So it's like,
dude, I went out for
what the hell?
They've got to pull off that commercially viable, fuck the culturally impactful, you know?
Yeah, dude,
it could be just a hater.
No, Supreme rips it, but like, you know, like it's turning into something a little cornier, like. Whereas for so many years it was like this super exclusive shit, but it's like now it's like a Zoomies just like that's outside the mall.
Man, I could say something like, yo, me and Aaron back in high school, there weren't too many kids, I feel like, who were super up on that kind of stuff. And, you know, that was the thing to fucking rock back then. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, dude,
when we were saying, like, yo, someone who's
we were in high school,
you got that secret handshake. It's like, yo, me and Aaron, I see homeboy in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yo. You know, that was the secret.
That's the whole point of it all. Because I think streetwear, again, hate that term. It's, like I said, punk in essence. And you're supposed to, it's a community. And like, when you find your community, that's what it's all about. And I think, especially now with the internet, that's getting lost with my generation. Like, kids get a bunch of followers and then they're like, I'm going to start a fucking brand and like drop t-shirts. And it's like, you're not starting a brand, dude. You're making merch for like,
yo, not to skip topics or anything. I mean, just what you had said about like people gaining followers and making all these brands, like thinking about the sustainability practices that you've been trying to implement with like the like plastic free packaging or poly mailers or whatever it is that you're trying to use, donations and contributions towards like environmental like conservation efforts. Like, you know, I would say personally that a lot of these t-shirts that these kids are making that are, I would consider to be merch, are just going to be discarded, thrown away, and given right back to the earth as a form of polyester that most people won't be able to, or the planet, most people production won't be able to kind of like turn back into something recyclable. And it's just, what's the point of all this? You know, it's like
that was something I was like struggling with a year ago, man.
You know, I work for a very sustainable company too, and it's still hard to swallow the thought that like, hey, if you're producing anything, if it's not upcycled, it's still taking away from Mother Earth. You know, it's still taking away from the planet that we all use to live and breathe and fucking do whatever fuck we want. It's what are your thoughts on that? I know you've been trying to go like a bit more of a sustainable route, and the thought of having all these kids with brands. Sorry, rambling. Go on.
Oh no, sorry. Last year I would say I was really depressed about that, especially after reading Mark Fisher for the first time. I read Capitalist Realism, which it's like an 88-page book, but that shit will ruin your life.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, cut costs at all costs.
I started diving into like the environmental impact of fashion, and like there's another great book called Fashionopolis that I think is recent, from like 2018 or something. It's a really great book if anybody's listening and is interested in the topic. But
mind sharing some facts about that might have like struck you as a bit of a surprise as far as like the impact of fashion, like what kind of toll this takes on the environment. Like,
well, I think what sums it up is that statement that was released at the end of last year that was just like, we made 100 billion articles of clothing last year as a species for 7.5 billion people on the planet. Like that, like, first of all, I don't think people even realize like the difference between like 1 billion and 2 billion. So like 93 billion extra clothing items in 1 year. That's Jesus. Like, it's depressing.
I honestly, I try to stay on top of it myself. I don't think I could imagine that. I don't know what that looks like. I've never seen a billion of anything.
We were doing, me and Dopamine Online, Mason, my Nick's homie, and our homie Kane Bleach, we volunteered at Fab Scrap, which is in Brooklyn in the Navy Yard. They get 6,000 pounds of scrap fabric and clothing per week in this one location, donation-based. And like the volunteers, like, take out the staples, take the glue off, sort it by material. So we were like doing that to kind of just like learn more about like what's really going on, and it was mind blowing just to see like this one place in Brooklyn is getting 6,000 pounds a week, and there's multiple in New York, in New York City alone. Can't even imagine in all the greater New York. So it's like, what fucked me up about that last year is I just feel guilty as a creator, like no matter what I do, I'm making a product that doesn't need to exist, in a sense. Like, it doesn't need to exist. Like, okay, like a t-shirt, a pair of pants, a pair of socks, underwear, like, okay, you need it, whatever, because societal constructs are not walking around naked. But, like, me designing a Sherpa fleece jacket and, like, a hoodie and all these extra things, it doesn't need to exist. And that's, like, really hard to, like, deal with,
Yeah, it's not like a spoon.
Last year, sorry, what was that?
No, it's not like a spoon. It's like you don't need to just like have it to survive. It's not a survival tool.
Yeah.
But
it's like, yeah, you need clothing to an extent, but you don't need streetwear.
No, but
like streetwear doesn't need to exist. But I would say around April last year, I think I was in Ohio with the boys, mad random. And got really drunk, and I was kind of like, yo, should I just stop doing Brigade? Like, I feel like I'm hurting the planet more than I'm helping it. And I think I kind of came to the conclusion, or I'm coming to the conclusion still, that because we're small, we kind of can control what we're doing, but also it's hard to justify it, but I feel like we're also giving people the opportunity to express themselves and to learn things, and that's valuable in its own sense. It's just a very hard, like, I don't know. I'm still, like I said, I don't know shit. I'm still like, this is hard to deal with.
I think we're all in the same boat.
It's a lot to swallow, man. It's a big responsibility you've got in this line of work, but I think your head's in the right space personally. What things have you been doing to kind of just mitigating your impact? You want to talk about that? I remember you putting out this pretty cool post about your packaging that you had done a few weeks back. I was pretty geeked to see that myself.
I remember I sent it to you, like, coming soon.
Yeah, man, I remember.
Way later.
Yeah, speak on that, because that's interesting shit.
As a small brand, especially if you don't have financing, which, I mean, this goes more to the purpose of this podcast, like helping people learn how to do these things. It takes a lot of money to start a clothing brand. And yeah, you see the success stories of like people that can kind of do it overnight in a sense, or like with very minimal funding. One, 95% of the time, there's a whole lot of shit happening behind the scenes with those kids that you don't even know and they're never going to show you. And that's why it's like they have these opportunities. The other 5% are the same thing as people that win the lottery. It's like you can't really bank your success on like, oh, it's just going to happen like on no money, you know? So one, it takes a lot of money to do this, which is something that I struggle with. But when you don't have a lot of money, it's really, really hard to be sustainable in any way.
Yeah.
So because the way I see it is like, I'm always trying to show people that we're focused on 10 years from now. You know, it's like we're focused on 50 years from now. It's like, I don't want you to feel like our next drop is, I don't know, not our last, but it should always feel like, oh, Brigade's going to be here for like another 50 years, you know, like, and that's what they're focused on. So to get started, you know, with no money, it's like, I can't afford to do completely sustainable clothing or like, you know, made in USA everything, which we try as much as we can to do made in USA, but it's really, really, really expensive and it's hard. They also want like way higher minimum order quantities, no color breakdowns really, unless you're doing like 1,000 units. So to start with no money, it's like, what's something cheap that we buy now or that we utilize now that we could change for obviously more money, but not something that's going to corrupt us. And that was the packaging. It's like the things we ship our orders in is like $20 for like 200 of them on Amazon, and gross. It's like thick ass, like unrippable poly, like plastic mailers. Found this company in Colorado that spent the last few years, like, I think they patented this, but it's a 100% recycled post-consumer, post-industrial plastic content. And then it has 2 glue strips. So when you receive your Brigade order and you rip it where it says to rip it, you can then take your order out and then reuse the packaging and put the second glue label. And then it's also 100% recyclable. So it's like, that was like the closest I could get with no money.
That's good, bro.
I mean, the difference between, if people are interested, the $20 mailers for 200 of them and these, it's a couple $100 for like the same quantity. So it's like, obviously I'm taking an L there, but I think we're at a point where a couple $100 is not going to like kill us. You know, it's like, that's an investment in the future in a sense. So,
and dude, that's amazing you see things like that, because I don't feel a lot of people are able to have that kind of trajectory in their thinking regarding the future of their brand. Because, dude, I think we all know it. Excuse me.
That's called catching up to the throat.
Right there. Feel it warm in my heart, warm in my blood. But the future of clothing is going to be sustainable. You know, everyone right now is looking to, you know, support sustainable clothing companies. I mean, not everybody, but I think the general consensus is it's like, we make too much shit. How can we make it better? So you being on the cusp of doing that, I think, is just really laying down the framework for a more sustainable future for Brigade. You know, this is something that like you're going to look back on a few years from now, I think personally, and just be so joyous that you made this kind of decision to do so. And it's a small step. It seems like nothing right now, maybe to you. You know, I know you're a big thinker. You think that, you know, everything you do is like, not that it doesn't matter right now, but you see what it's worth. And I think you have a very realistic outlook on a lot of these things. But what other, like, you know, sustainable, like, actions would you like to take in the future? Like, what is something that, like, you'd see Brigade, do you see Brigade being a sustainable brand? Like, you know, not to harp on this too much, but you seem to be I know you're very passionate about the earth. You're very passionate about people, the society that we live in. Like, you do think a lot on these topics critically. So
I think
I'm going to throw that one at you so hard. Fastball.
based on like the things that I'm digesting, in a sense, the information I'm digesting now and the research I'm doing, I don't know if being 100% sustainable is even possible in a sense. Absolutely. As a clothing brand.
Absolutely.
Unless you're doing strictly upcycled clothing.
Even Patagonia is not.
Really, really, really expensive. Like, okay, say you want to do like, I want to buy a roll of fabric that's like a bunch of scrap t-shirts that got mushed into a fabric roll. That is going to be like way more expensive than a new roll of cotton, you know? And like that gets tricky because then it's like, okay, are your jackets going to cost $2,000 or are your jackets going to cost like $200? And one of my biggest things starting from the beginning was like trying to make something that's, I guess, exclusive and like cool, but you can't make cool, but affordable, you know? Like, because I remember working at Wendy's and wanting to buy a Supreme hoodie and it shit was $140, and I'm like, dog, I can't afford that.
Bro, that's why Supreme's becoming whack though, because the only kids that can afford that are the fucking millionaires, and you see the line of them down the street, and people walk up and they're like, bro, like the hip kid in the neighborhood, the coolest kid in the neighborhood, he's not wearing Supreme anymore.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like they're reaching that point where they're about that money now.
They were like, oh, I think Supreme was almost there. I think they were literally, and like it's so easy and stupid of me to say that, being like where I am. I'm not as rich as Supreme, okay? But it's like, but
you're not.
No, but like you could just, it's a social dynamic that Supreme was after, and they were almost there. And I think they missed the target by being like overpriced. But they tried to make that.
I think they hit it on the head, and they were riding it out for years. And I think it got to a point where it's like, okay, do you want to be the cool guy in the corner forever, or do you want to make some fucking money and like feed your grandchildren? And then, you know, it's like that's kind of the point.
That's a point
in a sense. You know, it's like, oh, you want to be the cool fucking dude from New York? You're 60 years old, man. Like, come on. You know, it's like.
I can't knock that. I would do the same shit.
But again, dude, I would love to feed my grandchildren. Like, if I have the ability to do so, to do so. I think there's a huge abrasion or opposition towards people, you know, selling out. I think that comes from this is gonna be kind of controversial, bro. But fuck it. I think it comes from a certain demographic of people who are just almost too pure in their interests that they can't understand humanity anymore because they're just so curious about like whatever topic. Like, yo, I'm a purist cyclist, I'm a purist car guy, I'm a purist streetwear guy. You know, you have those sects of people who are just like, you can't tell them anything. Hip hop purists, like, no, you sell out with something like that. You're trying to do the greater good for your family, and if you can't see that through, I think you're a little tone deaf to a lot of things and the way the world actually works.
But there's also
important it is to have artistic integrity. It's also important to be able to fucking feed your family and make sure that like, I mean, the goal of any of us doing anything is to like ensure like we continue to, you know, reproduce and keep the human race alive. No.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a little bit of reach. So.
Supreme keeps the human race alive.
No. I also really love the idea that like.
Oh, that's terrible, dude. No, don't quote that. Delete that.
No, we can delete it. Dude, I also love the idea of some of the most successful people I personally know having the most fucked up childhoods or the most craziest childhoods. And
nothing like a little fucking trauma to push.
Yeah, and I kind of find it. I don't enjoy that. I wish it didn't have to be that way, but for some reason it is that way with a lot of the people that I know, and I kind of like I want to give my future children, if I have them, the best life, but then I think about it and being like, is it trauma that makes you successful? I don't think so. I think it's maybe like someone teaching you a good work ethic. But
I think it's a mixture of both. I think someone teaching you a good work ethic and trauma is what leads to like. I'm not saying like trauma's good at all.
No, but it does like inspire a lot of action.
But I
think, listen, bro. Trauma made me who I am. Trauma made you who you were, bro. And I don't think it's a matter of a bad thing or a good thing, but more so a matter of accepting it, rehabilitating it, and turning it into something good. You not saying I'm not speaking for you saying like you went through trauma and made Brigade, but dude, Brigade is a popping thing right now. You turned something that may have been like a negative part of your life into something super productive and lucrative for yourself.
think
It's the optimist kid.
one of the ideas that I explored when we did Fall Winter 17 with like the lightning jacket was like learning the concept of like you kind of have to understand it's yin and yang. You have to kind of understand like how bad life can be to really understand how good life can be, or like how bad of a person you could be, or like how bad of a person the human race could be to understand how good the human race could be. And I think that's kind of what trauma teaches you. It's like that's how bad shit could be for me, but I can take it and flip it on its opposite end and make it into something really beautiful. And the people who can overcome that and think that way with a good work ethic bestowed upon them, like I think that leads to being success. But I think anyone can be successful. It's really work ethic.
Well, dude, that's a magic spell, though.
And work ethic and wearing Supreme.
Fuck you, dude. No, I would actually like.
Supreme's gonna save the human race. You said it.
I agree with the work ethic thing, but here's the thing: you could be the hardest worker in the motherfucking world, hardest worker. But if you have a shit attitude, if you show up on the like a job, and like if you show up at a Supreme shoot and someone's like busting their balls, but then they're like, that's never gonna work. That's never gonna work. You're like, bro, your attitude sucks. So I think it is that like you got like it's the people that go through trauma that see the light at the end of the tunnel. Or you don't even have to go through trauma. You could be a hard fucking worker and super positive. And then that's a spell, dude. That's a magic spell. If you have both of those, because we all feel it. When we're being negative, shit sucks. But the reason we're all here right now is it's quarantine time. We're positive as shit. And we're like, we're not going to stop working because of some bullshit that's external. That's it.
There's a great book by Dr. Carol Dweck.
Dr. Carol Baskin.
Carol fucking Baskin. Called Mindset, The Psychology of Mindset or something. And it's a study she did a while ago. I don't remember. I think it was maybe the 90s. But she studied a bunch of children and whatnot, I think, growing up. I read it like years ago. But it's basically the idea of having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And that's like, you only really learn that if you're not consciously teaching your child to have a growth mindset, you only really learn that as like being a product of your environment. But a growth mindset basically is like you don't allow your failures to label who you are. Like you don't allow the bad things to determine what's good for you, and like, or what the bad things determine, like, who you are, I guess, same thing. Mm-hmm. And a fixed mindset is like complete opposite. So, I mean, one interesting detail from the book is like children who are told they're geniuses, like growing up, like, oh, like, Marty, you're such a genius. Like when you take photos, it's genius.
Never told that.
When that word gets thrown around like really easily. Most of the time kids take that and like internalize it and become really, really insecure. And like they don't feel like they're scared to try hard because they're like, what if I fail? And if I fail, I'm not going to be a genius anymore. It's like these people that are labeling me that. So, I mean, that's one thing to avoid when you're raising children, but when you have a growth mindset, it's like, hey, even if I do fail, like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to learn a lesson out of it, So,
Nick, you got something
that
on that.
Is more like, instead of like the trauma thing, I think it's more like having a growth mindset. And I think, unfortunately, that comes from experiencing trauma sometimes. So, yeah.
Wear Supreme. Get ready to own more Supreme, and if you keep owning more Supreme, you'll regret.
Dude, I find it's weird with Instagram culture though. So like I feel like my interest has always been on growth, right? So as a photographer, and this might not work for photography, it might work for other things, but my thing is always to like make a better, more impactful picture. But that might entail me shooting different things. So when people see like my feed or like my images, they're like, why is there no genre here? It's like some days I'm shooting like you wouldn't listen to like
fucking shoelaces.
Yeah, you wouldn't listen to an album, bro. Inside joke.
But you feel you don't have a
you wouldn't listen to an album that's like rap, metal, country, and then Celine Dion and a little pop. Like it's just too many genres in one. And I feel like sometimes when you're trying to grow in a creative space, you're trying out different genres.
But I think you're mislabeling.
You make playlists.
Genres. Like you're putting the label genre on the wrong things about your work from my perspective. I think like your genre is like your eye and the way you edit photos.
Yeah, so maybe your genre is just like what you see.
It's very consistent across the board. And I think when you look at your page, for instance, if you want to, read a book by its cover, like that's your genre. It's like these photos all feel the same way, but in different ways.
Yeah.
So
in different settings or whatever.
That's just my perspective on your work. But yeah, I don't think
I'm talking more broadly.
Like scatterbrain. I think you come off as someone who like is interested in a bunch of different things and like knows how to.
That's the plight of the American kid, man.
The way you capture things, same thing for Nick, and the way you edit them, it's very representational of how I think you guys see the world. And whether you're shooting a shoelace, like Nick said, or like your girlfriend or people on the street, like they all feel like they're in the same mind. And I think that's the genre, And I think it's just a
yeah.
I think it's just a matter of like making your genre like work for you,
But that you have
understand what I just said.
You have a beautiful mindset, Aaron. That's what I get out of that, is that you see more than the average person sees. And I think that's like part of creativity is like fucking honing in on something that you see that you just like, it could be so simple, but you dedicate yourself to that thing for many, many, many years. It's fucking crazy. But dude, to get back to questions and stuff, one thing that I like, I don't know if Nick has this. I know like his bike, maybe his Zen time, but like, is there anything that puts you in the mindset for creativity? Like, is there like a routine, maybe like a coffee in the morning, maybe writing at nighttime, or is there something that you're like, I can create in this space, and that's where I go to get it?
I definitely, in terms of space, I need to be alone, and like I like to be in the dark and like cut off from the world. Like when I lived with Nick, I really only made my best work when like Nick was in his room and it's 2 a.m. and my door's locked and like the lights are off,
Homie just bumping music. Got the strobe lights on the desk on.
He's at like
in his zone. I'm not gonna. Yo, Aaron, are you alive? And he just like opens the door. I'm just like, oh shit, all right, it's good, it's working.
But in terms of like a process, I struggle with that. Like I think any creative does at our age, but I don't think you really understand your process until you're like in your 40s. Like you don't really know who you are. I think your 20s is like you're really just supposed to be trial and error and like really fucking things up. Your 30s, like you learn from those lessons and then you're kind of applying it. And then your 40s, I think, not to like box people in and put them into these like age groups, but
how dare you?
I think for me, at least, like in my 40s, I'll be like prime. Like I'll be like doing something really cool. But process-wise, I think it's really just, I like to read a lot. And that's where I find the randomest inspiration in that and learning things. I think I'm very curious by nature. So if I can't learn new things and then I guess figure out how to digest it, I think the way I like to learn things is I like to learn them and then share them with others, because I feel like when you can explain something new to someone else and they understand it, you actually know it,
Yes, I love that.
I think, thank you. I think if me learning things, reading books, watching movies, I really love movies a lot. It's like one of my favorite places to find inspiration. Going outside, taking photos. I still like doing photography, even though like it's like a closeted trait thing that I do. Just learning new things and then figuring out how to reinterpret it, like exactly what you do, you guys. It's like you see one story that Nick told me once was when we lived together is he saw it was like one of those New York City like fire department posts that you flip the thing up and you can call a fire department or whatever, and it was like bent a certain way, and he saw it from a certain angle, and he was like, "I need to capture it only from this angle." Basically, I'm like really summarizing our conversation, but
Yeah.
it's like
I forgot about this one.
it's like he captured it from an angle where like anybody else walking past that wouldn't see it that way. They would just see a bent post and like keep walking. But Nick saw it from a way that made it into art. It made it beautiful, and like people who viewed it, the photo saw that too in his eye. And I think that's kind of what we all do. It's like we learn new things, and then we figure out how to like spit it back out in a way that people like us can relate to, in a sense, you know? So like you taking a picture of a shoelace, but putting your spin on it makes it like.
Fuck you, Nick.
I gotta say, dude, some of my favorite photos are Marty's shoelace photos. It just really nails those textures.
But does that make sense? You know?
Nah, dude, I think as being a creative really is all about giving the fucking literal TLDR on what you see day to day.
What's TLDR?
It's very
too long. It stands for too long, didn't read. So like someone sends you a huge text message or some shit, and they'll go TLDR, I'm mad at you. You know, like the whole text message with them expressing their anger. It's you take all the information you get in, like Aaron was saying or whatever. Like I'm looking at this fucking post apparently one day, and I was like, oh shit, fucking dope. I got a million things running through my mind about why I might think this is beautiful, but instead of like, boom, show it, and then it tells its own story. So
that's like that's like the photography route of like being a creative, I think. And then you know, like a someone who writes poems would do the same thing. Like they would be interested in a topic, and then they would write a poem about the topic and figure out how to like express themselves and teach other. I don't know. That's just what I think.
Dude, that's why as soon as Nick said we should interview Aaron, I was fascinated by you, because I was like, this dude communicates by like 6 different mediums. It's like photography, writing, design, lookbooks, curating, like all of these things, and even probably video too. I'm probably selling you short.
You said earlier about yourself feeling like you kind of just like scatterbrain aesthetically. That's how I feel. Like I'm just like
I don't see that.
People they can't like put it in a box. I was actually we have an intern named John Maitreya who's like fucking shit. I love that kid. I was talking to him about it yesterday, and it's like I feel like to be successful, you almost have to be able to be put in a box, in a sense. Yeah. And I think it's hard to put Brigade in a box, and that worries me. It's like, because I was like, every collection, I'm trying to explore a new idea, and I'm making new pieces, because I don't like to work on the same silhouettes. I like to make something completely different, like, you know, try something new, like Sherpa Jacket, the last drop, and then like, I don't even know what the drop was before that, because I'm just like I'm literally working on 4 drops ahead of this right now. But it's scary to like try to put yourself in a box to make yourself palatable for the masses. And I don't know, that's something I'm struggling with right now. And I don't know if you see Brigade and feel, I don't know, you know? I'm not gonna do like fucking focus groups and be like, what do you feel when you see Brigade? So it's like I'm just winging it.
That could work, dude, but like think about it as like the way that I've been thinking about it lately is like as a chef, and this is why I'm trying to step away from being that scatterbrain, is I think about if I went to a restaurant, I go to the restaurants that do one thing. Like I don't want the restaurant that does like Cheesecake Factory, give you 75 fucking things.
But dude, everybody loves a good hole-in-the-wall diner.
Yeah, well, I like that too, but that's where you go for your like eggs. That's like, or like bacon toast, drunk meal. But then like if you want something really good, like you want a good lobster roll, you go to Maine.
That's the problem though. It's like what? I'm scared to like find that thing, you know?
But you're almost a chef, dude, and it's gonna come to the point one day, I think, where you're gonna have to be Gordon Ramsay and be like, my restaurant does lobster rolls. Or we do fucking spaghetti.
Yeah.
But then when people come to your house, you can. When people come to your house, you can do whatever you want.
I'm working on to be that thing that's like very vague but also very specific. I won't say it because I don't want anybody else to like jock my shit.
Rip it.
But I'm hoping that somehow it'll work. But the problem is what I want to do is going to take like another 5 years for it to even like it's an investment, and that's scary to me. But also, you also kind of have to like be real with yourself, and like personally, I think right now, based on my scrapings with like the industry and the people I know and the things I know, I could make Brigade blow up like tomorrow, in a sense, but like in the bad way, like in the selling out way. Because I know
here we come, bro. You can buy that shit in the Poughkeepsie Galleria one day.
I know the tactics.
Don't let that happen.
No, I would never do that. I know the tactics that like my peers use to get what they get, but I think it's corny. So it's like, I know at the end of the day, 10 years from now, if I take the long route and do what I want to do and what I think is the right thing to do, when I look back, I won't be able to be like, oh, fuck, like, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to be like, I fucking did what I said I was going to do. And, like, no one can take that from me.
Yeah.
Integrity.
So I think that's kind of what you have to, I don't know. I'm kind of like I'm self-therapying myself.
I feel like we're all
That's
doing
what you have
it.
to come to terms with, Aaron.
I feel like me and Nick feel the same way with like photography is compared to like owning a clothing brand. It's like, dude, we're not out here peddling like presets.
You're not doing concert photos, and you're not doing like fucking titties on your gram every day. It's like
no shade to concert photos. But bro, we're not like peddling presets. And like some people got bills to pay. Some people have to like pay student loans and shit. And if that's the way they make their bread, then great. But like, there's some things that we just think are like corny. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
With every medium, there's trends, obviously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, to reel it back in, I want to know how Brigade got its name, because I think this would be a great way for people to be like, oh, I'm thinking of this name for like this brand that I want to make, and like this might not even have a meaning towards that, because I've heard this story.
So, are brand names a case of chicken before the egg, or the egg brought on the chicken? You tell us, Aaron.
Well, I think every great idea. I think every great idea, every great creative idea, from what I know, is like, from what I understand, the way creativity works is it's a lot of work, and basically it's 5 phases. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but it's like, first phase is you have an idea. It's like you have a vision in your head. Second stage is you have to pump as many versions of that idea out. You have to do the hard work. It's like, I think Thomas Edison or somebody said, like, it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And it's like,
one of them smart niggas from the past,
Yeah, one of those. But you gotta pump out all the options. And what that's doing is, in your subconscious, you're building like all of these options that you're not even aware that they're there. And then once you get all that vomit out, and then you relax, and you go into like almost REM sleep, in a sense, like you go into like, beta, or I don't even know, delta waves, or the fuck, beta waves. Your brain at the same time subconsciously is connecting the dots. Like, okay, this option, like, I don't know, like this shirt in blue, this shirt in red, this shirt in green. Okay, this shirt in blue, this shirt in red. And you'll have a eureka moment, and that's like the moment that everyone romanticizes, and that's when you're like, oh my fucking God, I got it. And you get back on the computer or the camera or whatever, notebook, and then you bang it out. I think that's when the best things happen creatively. And it applies to the name of your brand as well. Like, it's not as easy as like being like, that's a cool word, I'm taking it. It's like, it took me 6 months, I think, or 8 months to come up with the name Brigade. Originally, it was going to be called Capo, which is like, why the fuck would I? Like, I was like, I'm fucking Hispanic, and like, I'm a boss.
Is that like a mafioso kind of name? El Capo?
And
Aaron, explain the logo, man.
Well, hold on. I'm going to get to the name, and then I'll get to the logo. So basically, the name is like, I knew the brand before the name, and when I had Capo, I knew that I wanted it to be like, I've always felt like an outsider, whether it be like, I listened to like metal and like shit when everybody was listening to hip hop where we're from, or like I was skating when everyone was thinking that was whack as fuck, you know, like, just always felt like an outsider in a sense, or like to get socially and politically weird, like I look white but I'm Hispanic, but I don't speak Spanish, so like I have a fucking identity crisis 24/7. I've always just felt like an outsider, and I wanted to make something for kids who felt like me, whether in any shape or form, like if they relate to me on any of those topics or anything else. If you feel like an outsider, like you need a community to all come and be part of. So Brigade is literally that. It's like a militia, a family, it's Brigade. It's like
Beautiful
military unit. It's like, and then when making the logo, it's just like the story that you guys fucking love.
That's what the kids want to hear.
Well, the original logo, it's not the logo anymore, I feel like. It kind of phased itself out.
There's maybe a few people who have this tatted, bro. It's still a pretty special thing. Shout out,
Tyler.
Let them know why they got it tatted.
The original logo is a cannon, like an old like Civil War cannon. And what happened with that was I originally started this with a friend from our high school, and the way we had became friends was we shared a mutual friend named Alex Hollmaker. It's the homie.
Shout out Alex.
Shout out Bobito. Basically, they were like fucking around one night, driving around like Beacon, New York, and they saw this like Civil War cannon on someone's front lawn. And this kid that I started the brand with originally, he was like an antique collector and like flipper. This kid one time bought, you have some shit on your chin, bro.
Little
this
napkin.
Kid one time, I kid you not, he bought 2,000 pounds of peanuts in a fucking like pickup truck, like unwrapped, just like in a pickup truck, and flipped it in 6 hours. But anyway.
That's like a disaster for like every kid in my high school named like Sean that was allergic to peanuts. 2,000 pounds of peanuts?
He like sold it, like he flipped it for more money. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I think that like he flipped the truck over or some shit else.
No, I'm just saying like
all the poor kids with peanuts.
No, you couldn't flip that in my hometown. Too many fucking white kids were allergic to peanuts, bro.
So this kid, they're driving and they see this cannon, and he's like, "Yo, I want that. Let's take it." My homie was like, "Nah, bro, like you're fucking nuts. That's a big ass cannon with like rust and it's just crazy." And he eventually convinced them to take it. It took 4 kids to pick it up. They put it in the back of my homie's car, took it, went and dropped it off at his kid's crib. His dad saw it the next day, like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" He's like, "Auction." Like, he's like, "Oh, it's dope. Looks authentic." The next day, I'm in class, and my boy comes in just looking like a ghost, like shook. And I couldn't tell if he was high or like.
How old are you at this point, Aaron?
This was like
junior in high school?
Grade, maybe. Yeah, I think 11th grade, so junior in high school. And I'm like, "Yo, like, what's good with you, bro?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing. Like, don't worry about it." And I'm like, "All right, I don't know what to say to that." I forgot how it came up, but I sat next to the kid who took I don't want to say names. So I sat next to the kid that was cannon. I sat next to him in a government class, and we didn't talk to each other because we weren't friends. And he had like mentioned something, and then I talked to my homie about it, and he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna tell you something you can't tell anybody." It's like, last night we like stole the cannon, blah blah blah. It was in my car. We dropped it off at this kid's house. And it's all over the fucking news. There was I think so basically what happened was it was a historic landmark, and they didn't know. They thought it was just a house, and it was government property. So
they were
facing like a felony charge and like over a decade in prison or some shit. It was like saying in the news article, like, you have any information, like these people are facing X, Y, and Z, and it was like $75,000 like fine or something. I don't know, something crazy. So they were like shook. So he was like, "Bro, you got to help me and him get rid of it." And I was like, okay, like what the fuck? So I took them to Fishkill, and I kept watch while they dumped it in this like weird dam that was like in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, exonerate yourself right there.
Coincidentally, 2 hours later, this like old white dude walking his dog in the woods. This was like we dumped it like deep, like you're not walking over there. I don't know how this happened.
They dumped it deep.
Yeah, they dumped it deep.
Yeah, they dumped it. You just watched out.
They dumped it deep. He just happened to be walking his dog too.
Apparently, he's walking his dog. He looks into the water and sees a cannon at the bottom of the dam. And is like,
Bro.
what the fuck? And I think he saw it on the news, so he calls and he's like, yo, I found it. That dude got a $500 reward for finding it, so it all worked out. They got it, and it's now chained to the lawn that it was originally on.
But that's the logo now, right? Or was?
So fast forward like a year later, I decided to start this brand, and I asked my friend who I met through the Canon scenario to start it with me, because he's like obviously business savvy, and I was just like creative. And I was like, dude, we should make the fucking logo a cannon, because like that's how we met. And he was like, nah, it's whack. And I was like, bro, the name is like militant, and a cannon is militant, and like we met. It's very authentic. And he was like, whatever, I trust you, I gotta give a fuck. And then he ended up like dropping out of the brand before it actually got started, and I just ran with the logo anyway. I was like, fuck it. But again, it's like just connecting the dots,
Yeah. I love that you had somebody else help you with the thing that you weren't as good at. Do you think that's like now you're doing it on your own, so you probably had to pull up.
Huge learning curve.
Yeah.
It's a big difference between having a creative brain, I think, and having a business savvy brain.
Something you got to be realistic with yourself about. Even just for myself, like I think that I wasn't business savvy at first. I had to work my balls off to like understand business.
It's very hard to like think about the bottom line and to think about like, I don't know, to really just understand how that all affects everything. It took a lot of like learning and research, which I think, shout out to the meme that's like, I feel like right before quarantine, I was really getting my life together.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I finally figured shit out, and then this happened, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Let's keep rocking.
Well, yo, I mean, shit, this is, I think, a question everyone's been asking themselves, but like, yo, what have you been doing to stay productive during quarantine? Like, have you been staying productive? Have you been, like, kind of against the whole mantra of, like, oh, if you're not working hard now, you're going to fucking lose when quarantine's over? Or are you more of the side of the fence where you're like,
I think
hey, take this time to relax, meditate, be introspective, and, set yourself up for success in that fashion? Like, what is your advice to everybody right now who is dealing with this like very unfortunate circumstance in our society?
I think it's do whatever the fuck you want. like
That feels natural.
I strongly believe in listening to your gut, and it's like, if you feel like playing Call of Duty all day today, fuck it, dude, you're in quarantine. Like, and then tomorrow maybe you'll feel inspired to do like learn a new topic. It's like me, like I said, I'm curious by nature, and I've just been reading a lot of books, which has been awesome. And I've been able to knock a few movies out of my list that I've been wanting to watch for a long time. And I also have been like kind of forcing myself to design every day, which when this wasn't happening, the business side of things really tends to take over once you get past a certain point. And I feel like 2 to 3 days out of the month, I'm actually getting to create normally. And then the rest of the month is like me networking or like working on marketing, working on like copy, and working on everything like manufacturing, production, like just everything. So this has been a great time. I literally designed 3.5 collections since quarantine started, which is like really fucking awesome. Like I feel like I'm getting ahead on things, which is cool. I think it's just, like I said, working. You just keep doing things.
So your advice would essentially be to just like, what comes natural?
Yeah.
Just do that. There's no wrong or right.
Everyone should do all the time. Like, listen to yourself. You have 200,000 years of fucking instincts like coded into your DNA. Like, yeah, things are modern now and like time is getting more and more rapid, but like your gut is really smarter than you like let on, or like more than you let onto yourself. Like your gut is really fucking smart. Just do what feels right.
So I mean, would you say that's been a major factor in just like how you conduct your life in the day to day? Like you're not the type to like, I don't know, spit out something you wouldn't believe in. But, just speaking from like, do you have any like anecdotal like bits you'd like to share in regards to you trusting your gut? Something that like involving Brigade, involving Aaron Maldanado, involving your photography, like trusting your gut versus not trusting your gut, something you regret maybe, something you don't regret. I don't know, you tell me.
I don't know. It's hard. It's fun. My girlfriend, who I've been with for 8 years. For anybody who doesn't know me, you guys know.
Hey, shout out Sarah.
The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
She is very type A and I'm very type B. So I think that's like, I'm super fucking grateful to have that. So I might have an advantage right there just with that alone. She kind of keeps me in check, but I still like only listen. Like there's a lot of times where she gets tight at me because she'll be like, you need to do this. And I'm like, nah, like, trust me. I feel like something's going to happen and like this domino's going to get knocked over and this will happen. And then 2 weeks later, like I'm right. And she's like, fuck you. But still, like, so I don't know. I'm a strong believer. And John, this guy, who's his mutual friend, he's like he really helped me out with that too. Like he's a super strong believer in like, if it doesn't feel right in the moment, you shouldn't do it. Like creatively or like business wise, like it just has to make sense and it has to feel natural. It should never not feel natural. If it doesn't feel natural, then it's going to be forced no matter what. And people pick up on that. Like,
Dude,
like if Marty decided to only shoot boobs for the rest of his Instagram, people would pick up on it.
Yeah, they'd be like, this guy loves boobs. Like, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. Dude, Aaron, I kind of like want to wrap this up. So Nick, if you have any other questions, we'll wrap it up with that. But super specific question. I had some piece of advice, and I asked this guy before, how do I get my first client? And he was like, did you write 100 handwritten letters to people that you want to work with? And I was like, no, I didn't. For you, how would I sell my first t-shirt? How would I sell my brand? What's like one actionable thing that you can tell somebody watching this right now who's saying, dude, I want to be where Aaron is. I want to be Brigade.
That's a crazy ass question.
I'm sorry, it's specific, but it's like people want, I mean, myself included, I've always wanted like, okay, I get the fluff, but like, I want the peanut butter.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I want the action.
Part of watching the entire thing, it's like, I want the little things that they let out that are the cheat codes. It's not
a cheat code, but it's like, is there something specific?
It's not a cheat code, but it's like a hack,
Nah.
All right, strategy guide.
Fuck the cheat codes, but is there something that's specific to Aaron that you do that maybe has your flavor on it?
I'm rip, Aaron. All right, dude, the kids want this. This is what we're here for.
I think it's literally, for me, in my experience, for what I did, and if you were trying to replicate what I did, I think it's this really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. For me, it was to create a community of outsiders that can relate to each other, and then following that through all the way. And when things are authentic, people pick up on it. Not everyone picks up on it, but the people that need to pick up on it will pick up on it. And I mean, for most kids, I think, say you're a kid in like Utah that, I don't know, has an experience. Everything is from experience. Like, I am who I am and I make what I make because of what I've experienced. And a kid in Utah will never experience what I experienced. So that, unfortunately, sucks. But they have the internet and they can like learn things. Someone like that, I think it's like, you're only as valuable as your network, in a sense. And I think for someone in that position, it would be a matter of like getting your taste level to a certain place and knowing certain things, not just understanding them for face value, but understanding them deeply. And then finding that community of people that also understand those things and relating to them. And those people will support you, Yeah. Like, that's how you sell your first t-shirt. It has to be authentic. Unless you want to do like fucking typical Twitter shit where you like drop 100 free T-shirts and you charge shipping, and like that always works. Or like you do a giveaway. I don't know, but that's like stupid. Yeah, that's whack. It's like, if you're trying to start something real, like it has to be authentic from the jump.
Is it safe to say you come from so Brigade comes from a place of honesty and somewhat of exclusivity? Would you agree with that?
For sure. I always try to like. Sarah does more of the business. She's the co-owner. She does more of the business side of things, and she's a buyer for Bloomingdale's, so she really understands that stuff. I work with her to like try to make sure things stay exclusive. Like we only produce the amount that we know we can sell, or like a little more than we know we can sell, just in case. Obviously that helps, but yeah, I think it's just a matter of being authentic and finding your crowd or your community and introducing your work to them. And if it's real, people will like it. You know, like if you found the right crowd and you really relate to them and you produce an authentic thing, they will like it. And if they don't, then you're not making something real. Like you're not doing what I said to do. You know?
That.
And that can hurt a lot of egos, but it's like, hey, human nature, it's pretty predictable.
Did you sell online first or in person?
Always online. I originally actually kept it a secret from my hometown because I thought everyone would judge me. The way I saw it was that I did a lot of like mixtape covers and shit for like upcoming or like local rappers and stuff growing up. And I always thought to myself, like, you guys only really market yourselves to like our high school, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? You have the entire internet. Like you have all these people that don't know you in real life, and you kind of need that separation.
Yep.
Of like the people, most of the people that fuck with Brigade don't know me personally. Like they don't know that I sit here all day and like stew in my thoughts. It's like they think that whatever, you know, their perception is just what I make.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just think it's like what I did originally was like I kept it a secret because I was like, if I can get other people to fuck with it, my hometown will see that and then they'll fuck with it.
Yeah.
People have told to like something, and it ended up working. So,
dude,
I don't know.
I agree with that.
Still, you know,
I agree. There's so many chunks there, so many nuggets there.
Yeah, dude, you've been kicking nothing but knowledge today, dude. But for this last bit, I feel like we should shake it up a little bit and hit you a couple speed round questions to put down. And I need you to respond in less than 3 words for each of these questions.
Jesus Christ. There's a lot of editing to do, Marty. This is good.
It's not too much.
This is like 2 minutes long, I feel like.
Yeah, we're probably we're pushing the time limit, but I'll chunk it down.
We know the brunt of our shit is. But Aaron, let's see. Right here. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
What do you like to do for fun?
3 words, or could I like be just quick? I like to read books and watch movies and hang out with Sarah.
Good.
Sarah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Describe yourself in 1 word.
Curious.
Describe your brand in 1 word.
Sage.
Favorite celebrity crush?
Male or female?
First celebrity crush.
First celebrity crush? I don't even fucking know. My favorite actor is Joaquin Phoenix. I think he's dope as shit.
Dude's amazing. All right, boom. That's your first crush. Do you snore?
Hell yeah. Sarah hates it.
Cake or pie?
Snore gang.
Pie. I don't fuck with cake, honestly.
Hey, yo, say a word in Spanish.
Habla. I was like,
virtue or sin?
What did you say, virtue or sin?
Yeah.
Virtue, I guess.
Say something in an Asian language.
I don't fucking know.
Paper or plastic?
Paper.
How often is it allowable to cry?
Whenever you feel like it.
Do you believe in love at first sight?
Yeah. I mean, scientifically, I think it's just a chemical, like. But yeah, let's be positive.
All right, and my very last silly question for you, just to throw this in there. If you won $10 million from a lottery ticket, what would you do with the money?
I grew up in like the poverty line, so I'm financially illiterate. So I probably wouldn't do anything wise with it, but I would try really hard to do things wise with it. I would read a lot of books about money and management, and I would talk to people that I think know how to deal with money, and then I'll figure it out from there.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
My boys, Nick, thank you for the speed round questions and helping me out just like mitigate this. Dude, boys, Turbo Podcast Episode 1, Aaron Maldanado, Nick Wilkie, Nick Widebody Wappingers Wilkie. You kidding me? All right, boys. Yo. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Aaron, thank you for like.
So sorry about that, but I think you can edit it to make some really cool stuff.
No, I think you nailed towards the end too. You really nailed some things that I think if you're trying to start, man, if you don't take that and run with it, you're missing the boat.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you have to say, but a lot of these kids are gonna fucking just.
I think one thing that should be said before we go in terms of like giving people strategy guides. I think a lot of people don't realize that competition. I think like a lot of people think, okay, if I tell you guys how I started it, like what I did, it's like you're gonna just copy me and then you're gonna be like another brand and you might get bigger than me. That's not really how it works in business. Competition is healthy. The more streetwear brands there are, the more awareness around the world there is of streetwear. And if you're being authentic and you have your message, the more people that are aware that relate to you will find you.
Yeah, thanks for educating my market.
But,
it's like
thanks for letting me therapeutic conversation myself into this camera.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, dude. I think a lot of these things, not even just like for us to be able to like have like you as a guest on, but like are like very introspective for yourself, and hopefully like this has been a positive experience for you too, joining our podcast, Aaron.
I think your friends are therapy. Fuck paying for therapy.
Yeah, our friends are therapy. My friends are my family. I see no dichotomy.
Exactly.
All right, boys, dude.
Love for all you guys.
Thank you for coming by, Aaron. And Nick, thanks for helping out with this, man. You guys are the best.